back, gamers. Here at the Luna Lounge, we have a very special guest with us, Pokemon fan Ryan.
Hi.
Thanks for coming, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. This is really cool.
Yeah, so it's great to have you on the show. I actually always wanted to interview you and talk to you about Pokemon,
Right.
specifically because I know you're like an avid player and whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about like your journey playing Pokemon just in general?
Yeah, I guess it started with Pokemon Blue, I guess, like first generation kind of thing. I actually remember getting a copy from my cousin. He's like, yeah, you can borrow this for like a while. Never returned it to him. And, so I started out with that. I probably beat that game like 20 times over. Because you just feel like as a kid, you just want to like keep playing it over and over again. It doesn't really get boring, I guess. And then I want to say I kind of fell out of it a little bit as I went into elementary school. Because there's like that stigma where, oh, Pokemon's like kind of for kids,
Right.
whatever. But I actually started playing it again in high school. Because then I had high school friends who would like to talk about it and stuff like that. And I just liked how the games developed over the years. And
Yeah.
like the Generation 1 games are still really good. Like you can, obviously the graphics don't compare
Yeah.
to like now.
Yeah, now
but-
there's color.
Exactly, it's actually color, yeah. Even then on the Gen 1 games you can like change the color palette, but it's just like one central like color theme for like
Yeah.
the entire game, right? Yeah, and you know it's evolved a lot. No pun intended, like evolution.
Evolved. Oh my God, I didn't even get that.
I didn't want to make that joke, but it's kind of cool to see how it's changed and how it's continuing to grow.
Yeah.
I guess, and yeah, some people are kind of cynical about the newer generations, about how they don't like maybe some of the designs of the Pokemon and stuff like that. But like, look at Gen 1, like you have Voltorb, who's just,
Yeah, and
who's just
Pidgey.
the ball, right? Yeah, and Pidgey's just like a basic bird,
Yeah.
right? So like, it's kind of hard if they start running out of ideas, but
Yeah,
I think
for
they're still
sure.
doing fine, right? Game Freak and all. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of gameplay, I mean, how does like the old games compare like to the newer games?
Right. I mean, with the old games, obviously you can only move like
Yeah.
laterally and stuff like that, and then now you can actually move around in like a 3D kind of spectrum, right? So that's different. Obviously, in terms of the battles, like the graphics are a lot better. Like they actually have animations. If you shoot a water gun, it's not like
Right.
just these rain pellets that fall. Which I think was
The
like,
pixels.
right? Yeah. It's not.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that.
And
They
then
actually,
the Pokemon kind of flash in and out.
right.
Like, oh, it's damaged.
I remember if your Pokemon falls asleep in Gen 1, it just has like Z's that form on its head. But like now,
Right.
it actually shows the Pokemon like asleep, which is kind of
Right.
cool. So like they're continuing to improve it and stuff like that, especially in terms of aesthetics. Like the newer games just look beautiful, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. But the graphics don't hinder the fun of the older games too. Like I'll still go back and play the
Uh-huh.
older games too because they're still great. Graphics don't really determine like how good a game is, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right?
Like, I know you play the newer games like right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still ever, I mean, or even recently, have you gone back to any of the older games?
Yeah, with the older games, it's really popular to speedrun
Right.
because
Do you speedrun?
no, I don't. Speedrun.
Oh, okay.
I tried speedrunning Red. I think my best time was maybe like 2.5 hours, which is pretty good. But I had the guide next to me, so I didn't
Okay.
really like. People like just memorize the
Right.
routing and stuff like that. It's very complex, but there are some things about the first game that make it so broken that it's easy to speedrun. Like if you were if you were going to speedrun something like Pokemon Sun, it'll take you about like 5 to 6 hours. But something like Pokemon Blue, you could beat in maybe like an hour 50, an hour 40 maybe, something like that.
Right.
Just because the game is super broken, because it's an older game, so there's glitches you can manipulate and stuff like that.
So what games are you playing right now for Pokemon?
Right now I'm playing Ultra Sun, which is like the newest game that's out. It's a little disappointing because it's almost the same as Sun with like
Yeah.
a few changes here and there. I would expect them to make something that's the same game but something that's more exclusive. So say for example you have Ruby, Sapphire, but then they would come out with something like Emerald, which is like almost a combination of the two, but it's like its own separate game. But this one feels like you're almost repeating the game. There's maybe some other characters here and there.
Right.
But I'm still enjoying it. It's still fun, and especially because the newer games are a little bit different because they don't have gyms. Like you go through things called trials. So in the Alola region, which is where Pokemon Ultra Sun takes place, there's 4 different islands, and they each have trials. So the trials act as like gyms.
Right.
But they're not the traditional gyms where you go around beating trainers and then you fight the gym leader. It's more like you have to do tasks and things like that, which is kind of cool too. And I liked how they added side missions about trying to so for example, someone will ask you, it's like, hey, can you find this Pokemon for me? And then show me your Pokedex. So it's like, it's kind of cool to have like side missions and stuff. And you can like use it to earn cash, or it just makes you explore more.
Right.
And makes you maybe take your time with the game a little bit. So it's kind of cool.
I know in Pokemon, like I know you're a shiny hunter.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell the viewers for the people who out there who don't know what shiny hunting is, can you explain to them what it is?
Well, shinies it's just an alternative palette to the Pokemon. So every Pokemon in any game has a shiny. Shinies were first introduced in Generation 2. But the odds of finding one were like 1 in 8,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like
is
rough.
Crazy odds. I think now it's gone down to about 1 in 700, which is significantly better. Shinies don't really necessarily make the Pokemon any stronger. They're just aesthetically pleasing, I guess, just because they look so different than the original ones. But then you have some shinies that just look totally the same as the original, and they're not really worth like.
And I guess
hunting.
it's for like a rarity kind of thing, for a collector, right? Because that's what Pokemon is.
Exactly.
You're collecting Pokemon.
Right. Because my favorite part about playing Pokemon is trying to complete the Pokedex.
Right.
And finding a shiny is like extremely satisfying because they're so rare, and some of the color palettes look like even better than the original ones. Maybe not better, but they're just so different that it makes it like unique, I guess. Yeah. But the way shiny hunting works, especially with the newer games, they made it a lot easier. I know in X and Y and Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, the best way to probably breed, the best way to probably find a shiny is to breed. Yeah, you actually had to breed the Pokemon over and over and over again until they hatch the shiny.
Yeah. Is that why people collect Dittos? I know there's like memes.
Yeah, exactly, right.
The memes are Dittos.
Because Ditto can
breed
mate
with anyone?
with anything, right?
Oh God.
But the way to improve your chances, most people would seek a Ditto that's from a different region in the world. So they would like global trade with, like, say you had a Ditto from Japan and a Charmander from a North American region. They would have a higher chance of producing a shiny.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
It's a term called Masuda breeding.
Oh.
So yeah, it's like getting 2 different region Pokemons and having them procreate, I guess.
So
Yeah,
weird.
it would be a higher chance, yeah. But I feel like that's kind of boring because you just have to keep running around hatching the eggs. But in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, even in Sun and Moon, they made it like a lot easier. So they have this thing in when you're fighting a wild Pokemon, for example. If you weaken it enough, and if you use an item called an Adrenaline Orb, they can call for an ally Pokemon to like help them out. If you keep chaining the kills, so say I'm trying to hunt for, I don't know, a shiny Eevee, right? So I would find an Eevee in the wild, right? Use False Swipe to bring it down to 1 HP. Use an Adrenaline Orb so it keeps calling for help. So I just keep killing the Pokemon that's calling for help.
Just beat it up.
Yeah, you beat it up
until they call a shiny friend.
Yeah, and they have 1 HP just so they don't actually die. They'll call an ally over and over and over again, and then eventually it could be a shiny. And that's like your best like method for finding one, right? Yeah.
That sounds like
it's kind of cool because you can like watch a TV show or watch a movie while you're doing it because you don't really need to pay that much attention. You kind of have to look down once in a while to see if it's a shiny or not. But the thing that's tough about it too is that when a Pokemon runs out of PP, which is like its power points.
Sorry, you said PP.
I know.
I know what PP is. It's
right.
just
Yeah, it's like if it runs out of moves to use, then it'll use something called Struggle, and it'll hurt itself, and then it'll die. So you'll break your chain. Because the longer you can keep the chain going, the higher your percentage is to find a shiny.
Right.
So I've maybe found like 8 to 10 shinies that way. Yeah, and sometimes you just don't find one, and it's the most devastating thing in the world. But then when you do find one, it's like, it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, it's all part of the game, right? Like
Right.
you're trying to like hunt and
Yeah.
collect.
Yeah, because it actually gives you an incentive to complete the Pokedex.
Right.
Because if you do complete the Pokedex, you'll get something called a shiny charm, which increases your chances even further of finding one. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back on the evolution of Pokemon, I mean, Pokemon 20 years ago,
Right.
it was obviously like for kids. But now we were those kids. And
Exactly.
now we're older.
Yeah. I mean, most of the people I talk to who play Pokemon are people my age, like
Yeah.
people in their 20s and stuff like that. I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing that they just, because they played it as a kid and now they like it still. But I would say the community of people who like Pokemon, I don't think there's anything wrong with liking it. Sure, it might be targeted towards kids, especially in terms of the storyline. The dialogue can be kind of cheesy here and there and stuff like that. And a lot of people associate the game with the show, right? And the show is kind of targeted towards kids as well. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's for everyone. Like,
Yeah,
honestly.
for sure.
Like, I don't know if you don't need to be a kid to enjoy it, I feel.
You hear that, Dad? So Ryan and I were childhood friends, and so you know my dad.
Yeah.
One time in the car, I forgot what game it was. I just bought it.
Yeah.
I just whipped it out in the car. It was just like adventuring around, whatever. My dad was asking, like, what are you playing? He's like, oh, I'm playing Pokemon.
Oh, wow.
And he was saying, yeah. Aren't you a little too old for Pokemon?
Sounds
Why
like
do you
your dad,
still
yeah.
play Pokemon? And I was trying to explain to him, like, no, like, Pokemon is not just for kids.
Right.
Like, it's for all ages. And yeah, so I don't care. I'm gonna play this when I'm 40.
Right.
I'm
yeah.
still gonna play
Yeah, that's true.
because I like Pokemon.
Yeah.
But for me personally, it's more of a nostalgic thing. I'm not a shiny hunter like you. I think that's like a whole other world.
Don't get too much. If you start, you'll never stop. That's the bad thing. It's very addictive.
Really?
Yeah. Just because the feeling of finding one is like beyond anything. Because you don't think it's possible, but when it does happen, you're like, wow.
Dreams really do come true.
I've actually seen people. There's a lot of Twitch streamers who just purely shiny hunt, and they'll just stream for hours just shiny hunting. And I've seen people who accidentally kill the shiny, and it was like the
Oh,
most
that's
devastating thing
rough.
ever. Yeah, it's pretty rough. I don't think I've ever done that, but I would probably quit if I ever did something like that. But
So for the viewers out there who want to get back into Pokemon or even start shiny hunting, is there
Right.
anything you want to say to the viewers out there?
I don't know if you have a lot of time to spare. It takes a lot of effort. But the good thing about shiny hunting on the DS is that you don't necessarily have to turn off the DS if you want to just stop playing it. Because if it's on sleep mode, you're fine. I would probably start shiny hunting on the newer games just because it's the easiest method. The SOS, that's what's called, the SOS method. And yeah, I mean, if you're getting into Pokemon for the first time, it would help playing the older generation stuff first just to see where it came from. Because I think you can appreciate it more.
Right.
You can appreciate the games now because you can see how far it's come. Right.